Hi, I'm Javaune Simpson and welcome back to Speak Up. Now for today's topic, we'll be continuing a topic in which we already started, which was the last video, and it was speaking about rape culture. Now before I go any further, I want to give a big shout out and a big thank you to everybody that has subscribed thus far, that watched the last video and they gave me their feedback as it pertains to the video. Some persons will, I can think of at least one person that perhaps pointed out the topic itself, and I think I understand why that person, well, I don't necessarily understand why, but I had an idea that that person would perhaps have an issue with the topic itself, and I mean that's fine. I'm just trying to shed light on an issue that a lot of us have been covering up for years. A lot of people have been covering up for years. A lot of persons out there don't necessarily know that it's actually taking place, or taking place on such a wide scale, because perhaps this is not something that we see get reported on a day-to-day basis on the news or whatever it might be. However, we do have persons out there who are suffering from this. As a result of it, you do have persons who run away from home, and sometimes it's embedded within the culture as Jamaicans as well, for us to say, whenever it is that we realize that a young lady has turned up missing, whenever it is that perhaps it isn't that they have actually been abducted or anything like that, but it's just a matter of them packing their clothes and going over to a friend or whatever it might be without telling anybody else. A lot of these things sometimes are due to the fact that they have been abused, whether physically or emotionally or psychologically, for whatever reason. So yeah, before I even get any further into it, I want to give a definition as to what I actually meant by the rape culture. And I won't read it word for word, however I will put it up so you guys can actually see it. The rape culture is basically just talking about the situation within an environment that seems to be so much of a norm due to the fact that it is something that consistently happens, and perhaps over a period of time persons turn their eyes away from it, seeing it as a big issue and perhaps downplaying it after a while. And that's what I actually meant when I said a rape culture, and that's what I mean when I say a rape culture. And I mean, with all the respect to everybody out there, I believe that it is perhaps the best name to have it as, like it is a rape culture, and it is sad, because we have it in our society as a lot of persons don't understand what is actually taking place. Some persons are stuck in a place where they believe that this is non-existent or not existing on the large scale in which some of us describe it to be as. We have from the young to the old being raped on a daily basis. During the time in which it took for me to from the last video till now, we had at least one story that broke, and that this was relating to a pastor that apparently raped two women, or two or three. I think it was about 2 or 3 women, and also scammed them out of approximately over 200,000, I believe, something like that. And the story was saying something another like that he tricked them into believing that he was going to free them from some evil spirits, and that he told them that sex would be necessary in order to free them from this evil spirit, I suppose. And some persons might look at it and say, can persons be that naive or whatever it might be? But believe you me, you have persons out there who are so vulnerable that will believe stories for whatever reason it is, and they will, because they're in such a position or in such a situation, they'll perhaps do anything to get out of that situation. Now this pastor is the one that should have known better. He took advantage of his position, of his authority in which he has. I don't know if it is God-given authority or it is something that he just took up on himself to be a pastor, whatever it might be. However, he took advantage of that authority in which he has as an individual, and he misused and mistreated persons, and the persons were actually from his congregation, as the story made clear to us, that these persons were actually from his congregation. Now, I believe that at least one of the persons was ill, and so she was seeking to be healed, and so he, as I say, took advantage of that and say, yo, in order for you to get healed, you have to pay me some money for him to get some things, like some, I don't know, some resources to help throughout the healing process. And then he took them to well, I was trying to look for the right name, but back road, Portmore, and sexually assaulted them, raped them, and that's it. I can also think about a story that I actually read. I believe it was in the Observer before I did the first video as it pertains to rape culture. I think this one, I read this story about probably like February thereabout. I don't remember, February, March thereabout, somewhere along that line. And this was talking about he's not even a teacher. He is a teaching assistant, I believe, or something like that, something of that sort. He was at this school, in this high school in Spanish Town. I won't say the school's name, but it was in Spanish Town, and he had sex with a 15-year-old girl on the school compound. And I think that was probably in about 2017, if I'm remembering correctly. And this is where it hit me on a different level. I mean, he did the crime, right? And when it came on to him being prosecuted, the story outlined that so first of all, for somebody who is in authority, that is in a position that can actually manipulate anybody into doing anything, then the minimum sentence should be 15 years. That's what the law suggests, right? So the minimum sentence should be 15 years. So this person, by all right, should have been given 15 years due to his position, right? Regardless of him being a teacher's assistant or being a teacher, yes or no, because he actually has influence over the students. So he should have been given the same amount of sentence. That's how I see it, right? So the minimum should have been 15 years. However, this young man, was given, I believe, was it 10 years? I believe 10 years. But because he already stayed in jail for about 4 months or 2 months thereabout, that would have been deducted from the time. And along with that, I think he appealed or something of that sort, and the judge then gave him 80 years and some amount of months. I think like 8 months, 8 years and 8 months, I think. And then the 4 months in which he already served would have added to it, and then that would have probably brought it up to 9 years. For me, that is disturbing, right? And I think one of the reasons that the news outlet outlined that this judge actually reduced the sentence regarding was because this guy had a child. And I was like, wait, what? What that have to do with anything? So I mean, the mere fact that he has a child, then the court is going to be over lenient with him, and what? So the mere fact that he raped a 15-year-old, and it is going to be considered as rape because she's under the age of 16, and therefore she cannot give consent to having sex. So what the law outlines it to be is having sex with somebody under the age of 16, and rape in general, right? Because as I say, you cannot give consent to having sex given that you're under the age of 16. That's within the law for Jamaica. So for those of you who are watching outside of Jamaica, that's a law for Jamaica, right? I think it's ridiculous to have it at 16 because we always bring up the whole fact that how is it that you're it's legal for you to actually have sex at 16, yet still you cannot even consume alcohol. Yet still at that age, you are still living under your parents' roof as their child. And if it is that you do anything or anything like that, it is the parent who will be getting blamed for whatever reason, because you're considered as a minor at that time because you're under the age of 18. So why is it that this person is actually allowed by law to have sex at 16? And this is one of the things that we have teenagers out there just flaunting, that I'm 16 now, legally can do whatever I want to do, as it pertains to having sex. Whenever they reach 18, you have some of them say, legal now, fully legal now, and then when you reach 21 is another thing. All right, but I think it goes to show you that there are a lot of things in the law that we have to sort out, and not just in the law itself as the details that are outlined in the law. However, we need to also sort out how it is that we view these things face to face, or we view these things in real time. Because if it is that a judge is going to minimize a sentence because this young man has a child on the outside, like what? How in the world does that even have to have anything to do with anything? For all we know, and I'm not saying that this is the case, but I'm saying for all we know, he perhaps acquired that child by illegal means just the same. What if it is a similar case where he had sex with somebody who's a minor and got that child? What are you going to put this child in harm's way to be raised by somebody who's a sexual offender? For what reason? I can't understand the logics. I read the story and I was like, what? Actually, I was at work and I the school nurse was close by, and I shared the story with her, and she was like, she was disturbed by it as well. I mean, anybody who's thinking logically would be disturbed by it. So I'm thinking to myself, why in the world would a judge do that? I know that the news outlets can sometimes twist things. But I'm still wondering to myself, like, for what reason could you actually minimize a sentence? A sentence that should have been 15 years. This young man is getting 8 years. Come on, that's kind of defeating everything. I think we need to move past that. And so we see that in our society, a lot of these things are prevalent, right? It's happening consistently. We have the so-called dance, call for the young girl in the community we more have sex with, or we more when I'm bridging them have sex with, or whatever it might be. We have politicians, we have police officers, we have teachers, we have principals, we have doctors, we have all sorts of people in our society that damage the future of our young people by raping them, by sexually assaulting them. Not only the young persons, but also other women out there, that have been raped or assaulted and have been silenced or whatever reason it is. We have fathers out there, we have uncles, we have cousins, we have brothers out there who are raping, who are sexually assaulting or females, and it is being hushed, put on the down low. As I said, for whatever reason. Sometimes it is that we just don't want to accept the reality for what it is. We have parents and grandparents and other family members who silence these persons for whatever reason. Sometimes if it is that this person has money, then money talks in that situation, keep them silent, while this person suffers, slowly. They suffer slowly because they're remembering everything that happened. Sometimes they move on to having relationships of their own, and they're unable to function as somebody would normally do in a relationship. So that means that the partner has to be a whole lot on a whole different level worth of patient with them, just so they can feel comfortable enough to actually have sex with consent this time. I think we're creating a dangerous future for ourselves, because if it is that we actually make other young men who are growing up feel as though this is something that is acceptable, then we are going to have a big problem. We have even within schools where young men are raping other classmates, you understand me? And we see the videos at times. I remember some years ago I watched a video with a young lady who was being forced to have sex. Was it sex, or I think it was oral sex was being done, and she was being forced to do that, right? And it was obvious that she was being forced, because this guy was actually, raising his hand, or trying to intimidate her in certain ways, and then she just did it. You understand me? And I'm saying this because there comes a time when a lot of us think to ourselves that when we hear these stories, we say, yo, I should have my daughter, I should have my sister, I should have my cousin. And I'm saying that, yo, it shouldn't even matter whose family member it is. The mere fact that this person is a human being should make us want to mobilize enough, or should make us want to speak up loud enough for persons to hear us and say, yo, this can't continue. You understand me? If we're slowly damaging the future. If it is that we have persons out there who believe that rape is a norm, then what are you expecting to happen in the present and in the future? What are you expecting to happen? If you have persons out there who believe that these things are a norm, if it is that you have females out there who believe that they don't even have any control over their own body, and that a man owns their body, and they don't have any say over their body, then what are you expecting to happen? Which brings me to a story. Well, it is a story indeed, right? So I was scrolling through Facebook one day, and I saw this question. And it's a question that a lot of persons ask. Can a husband rape his wife? And when I saw it, just for seeing the comments, because I like to go in the comment section and see how persons are thinking. Even though I know a lot of persons think flawed in a flawed way, and I know that some persons are really thinking on the ball and they're thinking smart. So I was going through, and I recall seeing quite a few persons where they were like, well, some persons were like, I think some persons were like, well, no, a tricky thing, I'm just here for the comments. Some of them were like, yeah. While I remember a gentleman posted that he was like, the devil is a liar. No, a husband can't rape his wife, and he actually gave a scripture, right? And that scripture is one that I want to actually share with you guys. So it is 1 Corinthians chapter 7 verses 1 to 5. That's what he quoted, right? And that scripture is basically, it is basically talking about the mere fact that the husband has authority over his wife's body, while the wife has authority over the husband's body, and that you shouldn't defraud each other. So you can actually give permission to just not have sexual interactions for fasting and prayer and things like that, and then get back to normal things after. So this young man decided that this would be the scripture to quote for his perverse way of thinking, right? And that's what I have to think about it as. God forgive me if it is wrong to actually say that, but I think it's a perverse way of thinking. If it is that you're going to say, you can rape your wife or force your wife, because to force your wife, if you say, if you go around your wife and you kiss up and all these things, and your sister she don't want to have sex with you, and you're like, you want it now and all these things, and she's saying no and you are saying yes, the end result would be rape. You understand me? And if it is that you're going to say that it cannot be considered rape because it is your wife, then something wrong with the way you're thinking. What provoked me at the time was that this person quoted from verse 1 to 5, and he did not include verse 6, which I believe that is very much important to the whole context of everything, right? So verse 6 then said, but I speak this by permission and not of commandment. So therefore, it would be you who decided that you are going to force your wife to do whatever you want them to do because you feel like you're in the mood. I believe that it is that you're married. Yes, you should be having yes, you can have sex, but at the end of the day, just remember, say on every day somebody gonna feel like have sex. You understand what I'm saying? If it is that the person doesn't feel like having sex, then what you have to do is just try and come to a consensus as it pertains to when it is that you do have sex and how it is that you do have sex, right? Perhaps she's just not in the mood for whatever reason. What if she had a terrible day at work, right? What if at that time, all right, let's use something that I used previously. What if it is that she is somebody that has been raped or sexually assaulted sometime in her life before, and perhaps at this appointed time she's going through the emotions of that specific period of her life, and you are now forcing her, which might just bring up a whole lot of different kind of worms, open a whole lot of different kind of worms, and cause a whole lot of futuristic problems for you and your marriage. These are things that we actually need to think about. It is something that is prevalent within our society, as I mentioned before, hence me titling this the rape culture in which we have. However, I do believe that there are a lot of parts, that there are more parts that I might add to this. However, it won't be no. If in the near future then things come up and I need to talk about it, then sure, I'll go ahead and talk about it. But for now, I think I'll close this. Not necessarily close it, but just push up the door a little bit, right? Because there are a whole lot of other things out there that we need to talk about. But for now, we need to really educate ourselves as it pertains to what is rape and how it is that we can avoid this, and how it is that we can actually support others. Persons out there, we have persons who are next door to us who are screaming out, they need help, and sometimes we just lock up our ears and some probably put on your earphones and say, oh, nah, listen to whatever take place over there, because for them business that. But not until the issue itself kicks down our door, then we don't necessarily want to participate or actually speak up for somebody else. So we need to speak up from now. If it is that we know of somebody who has perhaps run away, have been a bit holding back a bit, whatever it might be, you need to have certain conversation. I'm not saying that you should go out to them and ask them, have you been assaulted or raped or whatever it might be. No, because it doesn't have to be that. But have conversations with them. Sometimes persons, it takes a while for them to actually reveal certain things. And this brings me to another point that Mother Who for it, I believe, she said, she gave a statistic in about last year, and the statistic kind of sound rough, because she said at least 4 out of 5 women, their first sexual experience is due to sexual assault or rape or force, something like that, right? And I was like, wait, what? 4 out of 5 women, how much women that? And I'm like, so that means I see somebody who has been sexually assaulted every day then, right? So to be honest, in all honesty, I believe that statistic is perhaps flawed. Perhaps she misquoted something, but I do believe that the statistics are high, right? I just don't believe that it's that high. However, I think we need to prevent it from getting that high. This has been Speak Up with Javaune Simpson. Go ahead and share perhaps your opinion as it pertains to this topic. Do you think that the rape culture in our society is something that is being hidden, not spoken up about as often? Do you think that it can be considered as a rape culture? What do you think is contributing to this rape culture? Go ahead and share your views right there in the comment section. I'll be very much happy to respond as best as I possibly can. Also, if it is that you have a topic that you want me to discuss and speak up, you can go ahead and share it with me, and I'll contemplate it, and then perhaps, you never know, I might just do it, right? Much love, God bless.